850, you suck.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
like
well,
cell
let's
phone
bring in Bill.
service.
Hey, Bill, you there?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yep, and great to have you with us. And like I said, and as you heard, I think you are the credit guru. I also tell everyone, you are not the cheap.
No.
Like, you're not the least expensive, but you are, by hands down, far and away, the very best at what you do. You're an odd bird, and I love you. And we've been friends for, I don't even know how many years, Facebook friends, but I've seen them at, like, political events since I've been in politics since 2007. So that's what, like 37 years or something. I don't know. I can't do math.
Fuzzy math.
Yeah.
Got the fuzzy math on that one.
So, Bill, why don't you give us a little bit of info about your company and maybe talk about credit a little bit and the importance of it, and maybe tell us how you do it, because I can't figure that crap out.
That's proprietary.
Yeah,
But
I knew
it's
that was
all
coming.
legal. Some of the processes obviously are the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Fair Credit Billing Act. You take the state and federal laws and utilize them to your benefit. We operate a high-end credit repair company. We're not the Lexington law firm type companies where they'll bill you monthly. Over the course of time, months and years later, you're still attempting to fix your credit score.
Yeah, I actually fell victim to the Lexington law people, and they were monthly, and my credit didn't get any better.
Well, you get exactly what you pay for.
Right.
We're a little different. Our process takes anywhere from 30 days to 4 months to complete. We bill hourly. We don't bill monthly. We bill by the credit inquiry. We don't bill monthly. When we have a conversation with you, we bill by the word. We don't bill monthly. The point is that we get the work done. We get it done within a period of 30 days to 4 months, utilizing the state and federal laws. You mentioned, of course, or asked, how is it done? Well, it is a legal process utilizing the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Fair Credit Billing Act. We submit disputes electronically, verbally, and in writing, not only to creditors, but collection agencies, third-party record providers, the credit reporting agencies themselves, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, sometimes some of the specialty agencies, whether they be LexisNexis or the other companies out there, attempt to get the job done. We've been doing it about 20 years now, so we've doing well.
I can tell you that, again, critically important to make sure your credit is where it needs to be. And you give me a lot of great pointers and everything. And I've sent a couple people to you, and actually, in full disclosure, years ago, when I ran for office, I wanted to be out of the limelight. I wanted to be completely off the grid and everything else. So I never thought about it. I would go out and just pay cash for things, and I never cared.
Right.
And so I needed to get something for my general contracting's license in place, and I needed credit. So I pulled my credit, and my credit was literally NA. And I'm like, well, that's a weird number. And I was like, Bill, I've talked to you for a long time. We always talk about credit and everything else. And everyone tells me you're the guy. So, let's see if you're the guy. Sure enough, he's the guy. I mean, he got my credit right up immediately, and he gives me pointers. Bill, in fact, if you could touch on a few pointers that are important to keep in mind when you're trying to keep your credit. Like, so you get your credit at a good level. Someone goes to you, they pay you, and which well worth the money. Well worth. You're not being milked
now, the
every
money
month.
The money you save in interest payments alone, especially on mortgages, just by a couple percent points. I mean, if you go from like a 640 to a 740, that's a huge.
Yeah, you're in a different tier.
You're in a completely different tier for the interest rates, and I mean, you're talking. You can save hundreds, like thousands of dollars.
Oh, over the length of a loan, of course. But Bill, let's say someone goes to you, they get their credit up because that's the voodoo they don't know how to do. But now we've gone to you, given you the money, our credit is up. What are some of the things that are important? Because, here at Primal Truth, we want people to know the truth, and we want to give people positive things
valuable
that they can
information.
use
Right.
in order to become more successful. And first and foremost, and which is why you're on one of the early episodes here, is because credit is that important. So what are some of the things, like hints or pointers, that you could direct people to do in order to maintain their credit after they've gone to you?
Well, obviously, payment history. Payment history is very important. We talked about collection items on a credit report, public records, the general accounts themselves, whether they be vehicles or homes or credit cards. Your credit score, your FICO score, 35% is the payment history. So obviously it's very important to pay your accounts on time. Any single delinquency, any single derogatory, any collection, those are negative items. And there's no such thing as a good collection. You have individuals out there that say, well, I pay $5 a month on my medical bills. They can't use that against me. Well, that's not true. They can use it against you. Any collection item on a credit report is negative. There's no such thing as a positive collection. There's no such thing as a good collection account. Even if you pay that collection account, most people are under the illusion that if you pay it, it'll go away. That's not the case. If you pay a collection item, you've actually potentially dropped your credit score because that account could re-age for another 7 years. Accounts will remain, negative accounts remain on a credit report at Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion for a period of 7 years from date of last activity. And typically the date of last activity is the date in which you failed to pay the account that led to the collection. If you subsequently pay it a year or 2 or 3 years later, they'll update it to show settle or account closed or zero balance based on what your arrangement was, but the 7 years will start over. So,
so that resets the clock is what you're saying.
That does. The statute of limitations of 7 years reporting starts over. Now, that's not in every single case. Some collection agencies won't do that to you. Some of them will leave the original date. But for the most part, most companies will update to show that it's a zero balance as of a particular date because it has to be accurately reported. And if they accurately report the payment, it's going to show that you paid, for instance, on September 2nd. Okay, the account's now closed. It'll stay for another 7 years. Now, it'll actually drop your credit score because it'll show the recency of collections within the last 24 months, meaning current. That would drop your credit score. Now, of course, next up, besides payment history at 35%, is amounts owed, your debt ratios. Debt ratios are very important. Sometimes you have an individual that will end up with perfect credit, but they have a couple of these $300 Capital One accounts in their credit report, and they max it out every month. Okay, that drops your credit score. The point being there is you have to have high credit limits on these cards, low debt utilization. 30% comes in with the amounts owed. So if you have an account on the credit report and you have 4 or 5 accounts, but one of them's always constantly maxed out, you're going to drop that score. Now, of course, credit mix, whether it be a vehicle, whether it be a home, whether it be credit cards or even finance company accounts are 10% of your credit score. New credit or new credit accounts within the last 24 months, that's 10%. But within that new credit category is credit inquiries. The more credit inquiries, the more hits you take, the lower your credit score is going to be. Some individuals will look at their credit report and say, well, why is my credit score so low? Turns out they have 32 inquiries within the last 24 months. You have to do something with those. And, of course, length of credit history. The age of the oldest accounts and responsible payment history. That's 15%. Okay, so, you'll have people come back, client comes back, individual comes back and says, well, look, I closed those accounts. I don't need them anymore. Why did my score drop? You take a look at their credit report and you see they've taken an account that was 10, 20, 30 years old, and they closed it because they didn't use it. Or in some instances, an individual doesn't use an account for 2 or 3 years. The bank or financial institution closes it for them. So length of credit history is very important. The oldest accounts on your credit report, 15% credit score. Keep those numbers up by simply maintaining the oldest accounts on your credit report. Use them once in a while so the bank themselves doesn't close, and you should be okay.
So you just don't want to close any of the accounts that you have. Even though you paid it off, you can still have a zero balance, and that's actually good if you have a $10,000 credit line and your balance is zero. As long as it's still an active account, that actually really helps your credit.
That does help your credit. You just want to make sure that the account is always paid on time. Another trick with that is the date in which the account's reported to the credit reporting agency. Basically the reporting date, the cycle date. I typically will ask a client, when do you pay your accounts? Well, I pay them in full every month. It's due on the 5th of the month. And the money comes out on the 5th of the month, or I set the clock and I pay it during the day. And I tell them, I say, well, look, backdate that a couple of days, because by the time you make the payment on the due date, it's already been reported to the credit reporting agency. So, we talked about the amounts owed to 30% being the debt utilization. You want to backdate those payments. So if you pay your accounts in full every month, pay it a day early. Pay it 2 days early. Okay, because by the time that account will cycle and report to the credit reporting agencies of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, the balance will show either zero or very close to zero. If you pay it during the day in which the payment is actually due, but after 12:01 a.m., it's already reported to the credit reporting agency. So whatever the balance is at 12:01 in the morning on the date, the reporting date, is the balance that will be reported.